Welcome to Lumen, a podcast that sheds light on mental health, relationships, and what it means to be human. Hosted by Christopher Mooney, LCSW, and Kenyon Phillips, LMSW, each episode focuses on psychological patterns that affect our relationships. No jargon, no judgment, just thoughtful conversations to help you understand yourself and others a little more clearly. What I love is the word lumen, the name lumen itself. And you were telling me the other day about like the etymology of it and all these various meanings and sort of like the history of the word.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we start looking at kind of the root of the word, right? Like I just typed in to get the definition of everything. And I was like, okay, let me look up all the different meanings of this word lumen and see how that, does this apply? And so it was kind of, I worked backwards from it. I was like, hey, I like this name, and Lumen Therapy Collective. And then I was like, now let me make it make sense for what we do, which I find is, honestly, I end up getting caught in that space a lot in my life, which is, you know, thinking of something and then working backwards to make it work. But that seems to go okay.
That's also, I think, part of the creative process. I remember as a songwriter writing lyrics. Like I would write lyrics, I wouldn't necessarily know what they meant. And then in the process of like composing and recording and then performing a song, I would realize, oh, this is what it meant. Like almost like meaning attribution came later. And it also came by sharing it with somebody else or performing it in front of people. And they would then project their own meanings or read their own meanings into it.
Yeah, therapy is kind of like that too, like a session. If you look at it that way, you're kind of like, you're in that moment, you're kind of creating in the moment with somebody. They're sharing all of this information, all these feelings, all this kind of like
what's going on for them in the now.
Yeah, it's all coming up, and you're working off of each other in that moment to kind of really, it's like improv, right? And then each iteration of that, I think each time you meet, you're building off of what you had already. When it works, it's a really cool feeling because I think you both people feel it in the room at the same time. It's like this other thing that happens in there.
Yeah, the beauty of improv, and whether it's acting or music, is there's a shared sort of, I don't know if it's consciousness, but there's definitely a shared endeavor. There's a collaboration. There's like a sense of collaboration in therapy.
Yeah,
when it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. I had this mentor professor at school. I took all of the classes he offered. I will reference him all the time, by the way. He was an amazing professor. And he was a jazz musician. And when he'd leave, like we'd have class all day long, all Saturday. We'd be there from 8 to 5. And then he would run downtown in New York and he'd go and play with his improv jazz band in clubs. And he would often kind of explain how it was the same process. And I was like, no, and he would share about that when you hit that space. And I think jazz musicians get it, because that's a lot of that. It's built on that, right? But you hit this space where all of a sudden you're in this groove, right? You're kind of in the vibe, you're in the flow. I mean, I feel like every area of life has a word for it, right? So it's like in sports, it's like you hit the flow state. I think all of it. Something resonates, and I think as human beings, that speaks to some of this other connection we have. Like there's something else that's there that gets us to resonate together.
Absolutely, that's what we're going for. And then when we don't feel that resonance, when we don't feel that flow state, maybe because we're angry or because we're not feeling seen. Again, going back to the sort of like lumen idea of if therapy is all about seeing and being seen, what happens when we don't feel seen?
Right. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think happens when someone's not seen? Or like for you, what's happened when you've not been seen?
Well, I mean, again, if this basic human need is to see and be seen and be heard and listen, then when I'm not feeling seen and heard, I get frustrated. I get sad. I feel like I'm cast out of the tribe or the herd on a hindbrain level, because we are still these social animals. And then when I feel things like emotions like sadness, fear, frustration, I think it's natural for me to get angry.
Yeah. I think when we look at that, where you're triggering all of these survival like feelings, right? Like if we're in that happens if we're posting online. That happens if somebody says something, or if you're in a group where maybe somebody's just doing something differently, right? So that could be school. Like if it's you're dealing with like kids and like college and all this stuff, like you're dealing with Greek life, any situation where you could feel like outcast or different or just not part of that group. It could just be family dinner. It could be Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, whatever it might be. People, if you feel separate or you feel other, it's going to trigger all of these survival kind of, fight or flight, freeze or fawn kind of responses.
Can you go into freeze or fawn? Because I don't think a lot of people know that. People know fight or flight as a stress response. I don't think freeze or fawn are talked about as much. They're starting to be.
They are, I think. So fight or flight, we know we either run or we fight if we're threatened. Kind of, you think of like animal responses. Freeze is we just stay in place.
So it's like paralysis.
It's like paralysis, and that doesn't just look like a physical paralysis. That's also an emotional paralysis and I think kind of just a decision paralysis. And so we have to think like we're not just talking about like crises here. We're talking about situations in people's lives where they feel I have too many decisions to make, and then they're suddenly anxious that they're going to make the wrong decision, so their response is just to freeze and make no decision.
That fear locks us up.
It locks us up, and then nothing's done. So it's we call it like that indecision or that decision paralysis, right? Or analysis paralysis, I think I've heard people call it.
Perfectionism paralysis, yeah.
Yeah, you get so caught up trying to make the decision that you end up just not making a decision. And then the thing passes and you end up like losing whatever it is. Fawn's an interesting one because that's one that we see, I think, more. You see in like family dynamics and with kids. We see it with, maybe in abusive relationships. But it's this idea that you...
say I'm the threatened person. Say I'm the person who's being triggered.
If you're the person being triggered, you're going to try and make everything okay. You're going to try... People please. You're going to try to, flatter the person, kind of like if I'm the person kind of like oppressing you, causing that trigger. You're going to do everything you can to please me, to make sure I'm okay, to take care of my needs so that it doesn't continue to trigger you and make you feel awful.
That's incredible. I mean, I think that's so pervasive
everywhere,
but it hasn't been talked about. I mean, even on like a cultural, historical level, there's this amazing book, The Intimate Enemy, about the Indian response to British colonial rule and how so many Indians sort of had this like Stockholm syndrome with England, where they took on the identity rather than identify as the victimized, oppressed, colonized people. They adopted the ideals of the oppressor. And so that was like a fawning response.
That is exactly it. That's a response to really, and it is to just, it's kind of survival when you think about it. It's like if I can twist myself and bend myself and take on the things that the oppressor is, implementing, then I'll be okay.
I see it in like domestic violence situations a lot with clients.
Yeah, we see it in work environments.
Yeah,
we see it, when people will in a hierarchy of work. People will respond up that chain doing the same thing. We see it in society today, with politics, with, everything like that's, people end up doing the same thing, and it's all survival. And it's dangerous because everybody just kind of falls into this role, but never does anything to move out of it. And it locks us up in this idea that we get caught in this, like, I'm just surviving now.
Right.
And when we're stuck in survival mode, it's kind of awful overall for us, because then you start building on depression and anxiety and just your self-esteem erodes, your feelings of shame start to build, because all of a sudden you have no agency in your life.
Yeah.
And if you have no agency, then you're going to feel really awful, because agency is your voice, right? If I have agency, I believe I have a voice that matters. And so if you have no agency and you have no voice that matters, then you're still retreating, and you're becoming very small. So all this stuff kind of like falls back into this like space of just feeling really small and insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
And so
unseen, unheard.
Unseen, unheard.
And does that lead to depression?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember, like depression is like a really easy way to remember is just anger turned inwards. And
yes.
So when we think of it that way, it's really this kind of idea of like, I'm not good enough. I'm angry at myself because I didn't stand up. I could have said something. I wanted to say something. I'm angry at other people, but I can't yell at them. So I'm just going to beat myself up. Somebody telling us what to do or just not listening to us or dismissing us. Well, I want to yell at them, but they've already dismissed me. So it's not going to do anything. So I'm just going to yell at myself instead.
Right. And then that type of behavior, the what is it? Self-abandonment can show up as so many different forms. Like it can show up as like substance abuse or overeating or.
Well, so I'm curious, like those behaviors, what do you think they're doing for people?
I mean, those are self-medicating behaviors.
Yeah.
They're negative behaviors. They're destructive.
Right.
But they are giving somebody a sense of agency.
They are.
Right?
There's a purpose in that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, okay, even if I'm destroying myself, at least I'm the one doing it.
Correct.
So
and I have a role.
Right.
This is my role. I am the addict. I am the overeater. I am the person who gambles.
The workaholic.
I work. If I don't work, what am I?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many, there are songs about this within the context of relationships. There's a great one by Anthony and the Johnsons, who's now goes by Anoni, Fistful of Love.
I love that song. It's a great song.
With Lou Reed guesting. Sung from the perspective of somebody who's a quote unquote victim of domestic violence, but doesn't feel victimized, actually feels empowered by the person's attention. Give me your fists, the singer says.
It's a disturbing thought, right? This idea that but it is, again, it's giving them a purpose. They have a role. They have an identity in that.
Right.
I must be wanted.
And I think so many people miss that because as a society, we judge people who have quote unquote maladaptive behaviors. What's wrong with that person? Yeah. Why can't they just get it straight? Why can't they just take care of themselves?
Right.
Why can't they walk away from that abusive partner? Or why can't they just put the substance down? And the reality is you're almost asking them to like give up the only God they know.
The only God and the only protection, the only thing that you're telling them, you're stripping somebody of their identity. Now, if you ask any one of those people, they're probably not going to go, yeah, that's my identity. That's what I want.
No.
But that's kind of where this therapy and treatment and things, that's where we need to shift to look at that. Like, how are you treating purpose? Can you help somebody restore purpose in their life so that they don't feel the need to then use and abuse, shop, and all the other isms that we kind of throw at everybody.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that notion of like making the unconscious conscious to a certain extent. And, my clients are really smart. They understand, they can grasp intellectually what the problem is, what the maladaptive behavior is.
Right.
But then there's the integration between, or some people say like the journey from the head to the heart is the longest journey of all, meaning like, how do I integrate what I understand intellectually into practice, into a behavior modification?
Right. I think that's part of our job, right, as therapists, is to...
Yeah, like being the midwife for that.
Exactly, yeah. Midwife, guy, I like all these different ideas of like what we can do, right? It's once you have the insight and you can understand it, so you talk through it, you have the insight around it, you kind of figure out what makes sense. And then you need somebody to kind of walk with you to do that process.
Right.
To just integrate it into your life.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can feel, as a therapist, it can feel like, wow, I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again. But I've had clients say, well, I need to hear it.
Yeah. I've also had clients say, I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again. I'm like, it's okay. You need to hear it.
Right. And that's
it's
part of that process of like accompanying them until they're ready. And as the enlightenment or the new idea,
right,
as that new idea becomes action, from going from cognition to behavior.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think there's shame in that process too.
Totally.
Because a lot of people will say, you must get so tired hearing me say the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, that's why we're here. This is what we're doing. This is what, we're working on. But I think people, when they start to realize that they're in that loop,
right,
there's an inherent shame in that. I think we've been conditioned to feel that that's not okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm boring you. I'm becoming tedious. Yeah. That kind of an idea. And it's like, I can't stress that enough with clients. Like, no, this is practice. Like this is a sandbox that we're playing in. You're practicing. Like, how do we learn an instrument?
Right.
How do we learn a sport? How do we learn any skill? It's by practicing, repetition.
Yeah.
And there can be joy in repetition, even in repeating stories, narratives, realizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. God forbid we focus on ourselves for a little bit.
Well, we just want to be a one and done all the time. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to, and I meet people who are really resistant to therapy. And then when they finally do decide to do it, it's like, okay, so 4, 5, 6 sessions, maybe I'll be done. Mm-hmm. I'll be cured.
Yeah.
And I say maybe, or probably not.
Right. Or you might go through a phase where you feel kind of done, right? You feel like, okay, I've kind of resolved this thing, but there's other things kind of lingering. But no, we want it just really quickly. Why hasn't this been resolved? We deal with this with family systems all the time, and working with young adults and kids and adolescents, college kids, where it's, the person becomes the identified patient, the identified client,
the identified problem.
Yeah,
the scapegoat.
That's exactly it. The scapegoat, the problem. So how long will it be before you fix that problem for our kid? How long before you fix that problem for my loved one, for my significant other or my sibling? It's like, well, that's not how it works. Like, so they're kind of doing their thing, but like, what are you doing in that family system that's around them or in that support system to also change?
I find myself again and again with people who ask that question. I say, how are you helping the problem, the scapegoat, the person of interest feel empowered?
Yeah.
How are you making them, what are you doing to make them feel seen and heard?
Right.
Because often they are doing the opposite. The person who is, the parent who's upset with the child's behavior, or the partner who's upset with the spouse's behavior, or whatever. They're often negating them.
It's the same behavior, over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like nothing. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? Like that's
right.
And I think, Kenyon, this is why I love like the social work model.
Yeah.
Because it's a person and environment. It's a humanistic kind of person and environment model. So everything about the way that we kind of conceptualize, working with somebody, with dealing with issues, kind of looking at what's going on. It's not, hey, you have this genetic issue, or you have this chemical imbalance, or you're a medical problem. You're not the individual problem, and you're walking through the world.
It's a holistic approach.
Yeah. So it's this, you are a person, and then you have all these things from the outside kind of breaking down your resilience. And over time, like with a force field, something's going to get through. And then once something gets through, well, then there's a crack. And then all of a sudden it starts to wear away on the outside. And that resilience thins. Now, the interesting thing is then we also have all our own internal dialogue going on at the same time. And if we don't feel good about ourselves, or we feel shame and all the doubt and all this stuff, then we're gnawing away at that force field on the inside.
Right.
And so it shrinks very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we have no resilience, and then we start feeling awful. Then we start using drugs, alcohol, shopping, gambling, all this stuff, food, love food.
Love food. Love food. Food is the most accessible drug there is.
It is, and it makes me feel so good.
Food loves you back.
It does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night, food loves me back.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's important. What is it about ingesting, whether it's food or a drug or alcohol? What is it about ingesting?
I had this client that I work with for forever, like on and off. And I think I met that person when I was like 28, 29, in recovery. And this person would always joke about his gaping hole of shame, his gaping pit of shame.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that there's not enough drugs in the world that could fill it. But God, they were going to die trying. And I think that's
insight.
Yeah. I think that's, and to this day, when I speak to that person, we still talk about that idea, because I think it was so kind of enlightening at that moment. It was like, oh yeah, no, this is, we have a pit in our stomach.
Right.
And we feel it. And everybody feels that from time to time. And then we can just, no matter what we find, was it Chuck Bukowski, find what you love and let it kill you?
Yeah.
And I think that is that exact feeling. I mean, there's, an alcoholic, like to the nth degree.
Like Bukowski.
Yeah. But I think like that was the idea. It's just like, I'm just going to take as much of this in as possible. Now, people do that with relationships. They do it with love. They do it with like those people in your life, the people that just suck everything out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're filling that hole.
The vampires.
Yeah. They're not, it's not a malicious, it's not, I'd say 99% of the time, these aren't like malicious, hurtful people. They end up hurting everybody around them, but it's because they are just trying to fill such an empty void. And so whatever you give, whatever works for you.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sometimes it's eggplant parm. Sometimes, it's
often it's eggplant parm.
It's always when in doubt, it's always eggplant parm.
Exactly. That's a solid go-to and a prescription I return to again and again. The idea that a therapist and that therapy is a cure, that we're here to fix people or save people, definitely a myth, or at least I haven't experienced that in my practice. And yet I see it, I hear it.
Yeah. How do you hear that? Like, I'm interested about that. Like,
I think I've heard it from clients like, well, I'm going to, I need to be therapized because I just need you to fix this. And there is no fix, really. I mean, is at least my conclusion.
Well, do you have the answers?
I don't.
Oh.
And
well, that's awkward.
I don't have the answers. And I can pretend I do. I used to be an actor. Like I could dress the part and put on a wig and tell you what's wrong with you. And maybe if I deliver that with enough confidence, you'll believe it. But my clients are the experts on them, not me. I'm a fly on the wall to a certain extent.
What does that mean? Clients are the experts.
They are experts in their own lives. And I always say that in the first session. When I start with somebody, I say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Right.
You are the expert in your life. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in your life. I'm just getting a window into your life right now. This is my first session with you.
Right.
What I can do is help you feel empowered. What I can do is point out tools, resources that you already have that you may not know that you have or realize that you have.
Yeah. We're guides. We're there to walk along with,
mm-hmm.
And I think that's, you think about that in every culture and
mm-hmm.
every religion, every spiritual kind of thing, there's always some kind of guide, some kind of like person to go along.
The shaman.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
Percy Jackson had his person.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And what's your flashlight analogy that I love about that?
It's not our job to hold the flashlight. It's, the person we're working with, it's their job to hold the flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make suggestions as to where we might want to look.
Where you might want to point that way.
Yeah. Hey, we should look over there. It's a little dark over in that corner. Why don't we illuminate that for a little bit?
Lumen.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Shine that light.
Exactly. But I love that because again, it's empowering it's helping the person feel empowered.
That's right. Yeah.
And like ultimately, I tell people this too right away. Like my goal is not to have you be my client for all eternity. It's actually to help you heal yourself to a certain extent.
Right. We should be working ourselves out of a job.
Exactly.
Every person we meet, we should be working our way out of that job.
So that person feels empowered and feels like they have the tools they need to get over whatever discomfort has driven them to therapy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Imagine if you have that relationship with somebody in your life where you can do that. And then you say, well, I think I'm okay for a little bit now, or I'm good. And you go, and then some other life event happens, because inevitably it will happen and it will suck and something will be crappy and you're going to have to deal with it. And then you have the positive experience to go back and find that person again and say, hey, something else came up. I need to check in again for a few sessions for a little while,
right,
and kind of navigate this. When you know you have somebody there as a guide, even if it's a different therapist, like that people do, they'll bounce around a little bit, but to know that you have somebody there as a guide that can help you and feel good and support you in finding, your path, it becomes much easier to check in and out of that process when you need. That, to me, that's a healthy relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
Our job as a therapist is to create and mirror what people can be on the outside. So if we start creating what looks like a healthy relationship, this is a microcosm for the real world. Now take how you navigate this and go out and practice. And then come back and check in. And then
again, that like sandbox idea, like, totally. Okay, well, we're playing in the sandbox. This is a microcosm. And then let's go out there and try it and see how you do. And if you do great, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm here if you need me or not. And then, I also think people sometimes need just an adjustment.
That's absolutely
right.
Yeah. No, it's the emotional chiropractor.
Exactly. Exactly. Chiropractors are somewhat controversial.
Hot button topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some are. It's hard to find. It depends on what you want.
Right.
I saw a guy in New York who was like, it was like an open office. It was very strange. Like the other people waiting were also sitting there with you.
Like a theater.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But he was kind of no nonsense. And he was just like, literally like, I'm just making these pops and cracks here, do these stretches. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. There was no like, I didn't have to turn around 4 times. I didn't have to like do any kind of weird stuff.
No woo-woo.
No woo-woo.
Yeah.
And I feel like in every industry, there's a lot of woo-woo.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the controversy comes from.
Yeah, I think so too.
I like people who are just straightforward, just kind of like, hey, like this is what we're dealing with. If you like this, great. If you don't, that's great too. You can go.
No, it's a great model for therapy as well.
Yeah. It's a great model for life.
Yeah. As opposed to like having an agenda and trying to get somebody, like force somebody into a modality that they don't necessarily feel.
No, that always feels awful.
Yeah. I do that with, some people think it's really woo-woo of me to be interested in like dance movement therapy, DMT.
Yeah.
But it's it's an evidence-based practice, at least with regards to like trauma treatment.
Of course.
And, feeling the idea is like, hey, how do we feel safe in our bodies? If we feel safe in our bodies, we'll feel safe in our environments. If we feel safe in our environments, then we'll be safe making social connections with people.
Right.
And that's arguably the measurement of mental health. So, we do store trauma in our bodies.
Absolutely.
And if movement, whether it's dance or just mirrored movement or whatever kind of, minimal swaying, rocking back and forth helps, then cool. And if it doesn't work for you, we don't have to use that modality.
Yeah, that's cool too.
Right.
But no, I think that's interesting. So you feel like is it grounding? Is it getting in touch and in sync with the body? What is it that I'm
in favor of, like running a series of exercises and letting the client kind of guide, like, okay, how comfortable are you with this?
Right.
But, starting out with just like awareness, almost doing like a body scan, and just like we are discouraged from being, as a society, I would say, at least Western society, we're discouraged from being in touch with our bodies. We're supposed to know when we have to go to the bathroom or when we're hungry,
right,
or when we want to fall asleep, when we're tired.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe horny.
Probably horny.
Yeah, right. Maybe.
Most people just react.
Right.
On it. Yeah.
Exactly. But like to engage somebody actively in a body scan, which is a type of meditation almost, to just like say, okay, what does the top of your head feel like? Mm-hmm. What do your neck and shoulders feel like? Do you store, tension there, stress? What does this chakra feel like? I don't even use words like chakra because that can turn people off.
Right. People get so weird about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of important.
But like, how do you feel? And then what happens to you when you wiggle your toes and your fingers at the same time? It can actually like create a blank in the mind, which can be a reset button. Like if you want to just stop, if you have racing thoughts or obsessive thinking, just doing something like that, or patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time can like erase your mind and hit reset. And then from there, moving into like, okay, once we're sort of in our bodies and we're aware of like how our bodies are feeling, what happens when we try mirrored movement? What happens if I raise my hand slowly and ask you to do the same and match my movement? Now you take a turn. You do a basic movement, almost like Tai Chi type stuff.
Yeah.
It can be basic. It can be simple. I think the simpler, the better to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is we progress from there into like tuned walking in pairs, for example, where we're like trying to walk in step with each other. And what happens if we do that in rhythm to music?
Sure.
And, from there, it can get increasingly complex. But I think what happens, in every single session, whether it's with a group or an individual session, is by the end, people, I'm connecting with you, you're connecting with me, or you're connecting with other group members. And how do you feel? That's when you check in.
Right.
I feel happy. I feel better. I feel lighter.
Right.
I'm laughing. And in some cases, where we're starting from is a really traumatized place where people are just kind of like sad, shut down, paralyzed.
Dissociated. Is that what I always hear from people when they have trauma? Like, oh, I'm not in my body. I'm not in my body. I'm separate from my body. Mm-hmm. That's all I ever hear.
Totally.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is like a way to start reintegrating people with their body again.
It totally can be.
Yeah.
And, someone who's traumatized, especially with any kind of physical trauma, assault or, any kind of like sexual abuse, the last place they want to be is in their body. The body does not feel safe. No. And and dissociation is often a coping mechanism, a survival mechanism, a tactic that, if you think of like children who are assaulted sexually, often the only way they can kind of like remain sane and get through it is to dissociate.
Right.
And so you're asking somebody, again, almost like asking somebody who has a substance use disorder to give up the substance, by asking somebody who's traumatized physically to give up dissociation or to try something else. You're asking them to give up the only God that they know.
Right. And the safety, not only that, it's like asking alcohol to go stand in a bar, like in recovery to go stand in a bar. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like, not only you have to give up the dissociation, but you have to actively push yourself back into your body.
Right.
That's terrifying.
It's totally terrifying. And how many times have I heard from people who, put down whatever the behavior is, the maladaptive behavior. It's, putting it down, stopping whatever the behavior was, the compulsion wasn't the hard part. The hard part is dealing with all the feelings that I have to feel now that I'm not using or compulsively doing. And that's the final frontier.
Yeah.
What happens when we are forced to face our feelings? And you can run from them to a certain extent, but eventually we have to stop running.
Yeah. That sucks. Mm-hmm. Facing I don't want to face that stuff.
Nobody does.
I never want to face that stuff.
And we live in a society that increasingly provides us with like more and more and more distractions from doing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of these distractions are celebrated and appreciated and rewarded by our society.
Of course. And dopamine.
And dopamine.
Lots of shots of dopamine.
Tons. But like, hey, if I'm going to escape my issues and if my strategy to escape facing myself and facing my fears is to just work my ass off, then society says, oh, great job.
Yeah. You must be doing so well. You're so successful.
You're so quote unquote successful. What is success? Yeah. I heard one of the greatest definitions of success I've ever heard is gaining the respect of those you respect.
Wow.
It takes it out of the context of accomplishment, material gain, wealth, any of those things that we normally associate success with. Right. Just gaining the respect of those you respect.
That's success. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I bet the people that are surrounding when you're working or whatever it is you're like obsessing about and just like immersing yourself in, it's often not the people that there's probably, there's some respect there, but probably not what you're really looking for in life. Yeah,
totally. And getting back to the self, I think again, this idea that people are the experts in their own lives. Mm-hmm. How do we, as therapists, illuminate what their instinct, like so much of it is like, how do we help people get back to their instincts, listening to that inner voice,
right.
Remembering, recovering.
Yeah. And it's a process of identifying that, helping somebody acknowledge that, identify it, and then figuring out what that path can look like for them. And then how do we walk along that so that they feel they have that empowerment kind of building?
Totally.
Right? They have that feeling of like, oh, I can do this. This is mine now. That's autonomy.
Totally.
Right? That idea that I can do this.
Yeah.
I'm participating in my life.
Right. Is that what draws you to this work? And what's the most gratifying aspect of it?
I think I am just batshit crazy and just really, I don't.
Just distracting yourself from facing
really,
yourself.
I'm just avoiding my life by doing this work.
I mean, there is a stereotype out there. There's this idea that like no one's crazier than therapists.
I'd probably agree. I mean, it's a spectrum. So for certainly, there's also some really, there's some weird people out there, and then there's some not so weird people. Depending on who you ask, they'll probably put both of us on somewhere on that spectrum at different points, at different days.
Yeah.
What draws me to, I love connecting. I joke with people all the time. I'm like, I really can't stand people, but I don't think that's true. I think I actually just really, I just love connecting with people. I just genuinely feel so curious about how other people feel. So that I should probably take a look at that at some point, but it's, but yeah, that's why I love doing this.
I totally identify with that curiosity and connection. I am, whenever even in just like a social environment, I'm excited to meet people. Like I want to know what it is that drives them. I want to know what they like.
Totally.
What, and what they don't like.
Yeah.
Sometimes people define themselves according to what they don't like.
Of course.
And that's interesting to me too. I try not to judge. But absolutely connection and curiosity for me.
Well, that's so cool because then you get to experience, they might tell you something they're into. If you do that a bunch, especially socially, then all of a sudden you might get some really cool idea about what you want to try. Right. So it's like, oh, I never thought of that. I should try this.
Totally.
Right? Oh, I this person mentioned this thing. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm into like bird watching and I didn't know that. Right. Like birding. Sorry. Not bird watching, birding.
It's true. And then
you're a dad. You're like, we're both dads of a certain age. So like, we're supposed to be into birding now.
We're supposed to be into birding. It's
bird feeders. Yeah.
Birding and tech. We're both really interested in tech.
Yeah.
Right.
As the hour-long setup that this took, I could tell.
Yeah. Right.
Like, we'll figure it out.
What if this? What if that? But no, that I love that. And you also illuminated something else for me just now, which is learning something from a client. And like, I learn so much from clients. And again, like, that's why I love reinforcing the idea that like, I'm not the expert here.
No.
And we are, in terms of like the therapeutic process, arguably it's a journey that I take with the client.
Yes.
Like, okay, we're setting off on this adventure together, Tolkien style.
Absolutely.
Right.
What other like feel, there's probably a couple others, but like really, where else do you get to like sit with somebody face to face, like really lock eyes. So you're kind of like, you're making that connection, and go through that. It's intense. It's deep and it's super meaningful.
It really is.
And powerful. And I think it's like, you get to do that over and over and over again. Yeah. Like it's just so, it's like drinking concentrated juice.
Yeah.
Like you can't water it down.
You can't water it down after you've tried the real thing.
Right.
That's right. The unconcentrated. For me, I was an artist and a performer, and I think I'm, for some reason, doing this kind of work pushes the same joy buttons for me that performing and writing and recording did. And I think it's because performance was my real love. I was, I don't know how good a musician I was. I know I was a lot shittier than most of the people I worked with who were wonderful. I surrounded myself with talented musicians, but I loved connection. I loved that connection that I could manifest and experience on stage with an audience. And there is something that's not that therapy is necessarily performative. I think when it's performative, it can be really shitty.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
No, connection, having an interchange, an exchange, a real exchange energetically with the person who, as you said, you're locking eyes with.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So I think we have to wind down.
I agree, because we have clients.
We do.
Thanks for listening to Lumen, hosted by Christopher Mooney, LCSW, and Kenyon Phillips, LMSW. If today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to follow, review, and share Lumen with anyone you think would appreciate it. We'll be back soon with another conversation designed to bring a little more light to the human condition. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.